After their father died 5 years ago, Illy took over the family's fishing business, Rivera Fisheries, based on a sleepy coastal town in Oregon. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady. The boats brought in enough halibut and crab to keep the docks busy and the family fed. The business paid for groceries, medical bills, even Ree's expensive prep schools. Ree, his brilliant younger sister, the pride of the family, the one everyone said was going to make it out. And she did. Ree got into a prestigious European university to pursue her PhD in environmental science, poetic in a way. Illy supported her. He even sent her money when she said her stipend was delayed. But what Illy didn't know, what he couldn't have imagined, was that while he was out at sea, sailing 3 a.m. mornings, knee-deep in freezing water, sacrificing birthdays, holidays, and relationships, his family had been planning something behind his back. It was the smell that first tipped him off. Illy returned from a 5-day run, beard coarse with salt, hands blistered. But when he pulled into the harbor, the usual bustle around their boat slip was missing. No dock hands, no foreman, no sign of Miguel, his first mate. Just a sterile silence. He stepped off the Mariana and found a notice nailed to the boathouse door. This property is now under ownership of Blue Coast Ventures, LLC. He stared at the paper for a full minute, brain trying to piece together something that made sense. Blue Coast? What the hell was that? He stormed into the office, or what used to be his office. A stranger in a tailored suit was packing files into boxes. "Can I help you?" the man asked. "I own this business." Illy said, eyes narrow. The man blinked. "Not anymore. I believe the sale went through 2 weeks ago. You're Elijah Rivera." Illy's stomach dropped. "Yeah, well." The man said, not unkindly, "Then you already know the paperwork was signed. You're no longer on the board. Your family sold their shares. You were listed as a consenting party. That's impossible." Illy snapped, "I never signed anything." The man handed him a copy of the sale documents, and there it was, his signature, scrawled on the bottom. Except he never signed it. It took him a week to get answers. His calls to Ree went straight to voicemail. His mother dodged his questions, saying things like, "We did what we had to do." And Ree's future is important. Eventually, it was his uncle, Vicent, who spilled it all after a few beers. "Look," Vicent said, avoiding eye contact. The business was slowing down. Ree's PhD needed funding. The family voted. You weren't here. Your signature was handled. You forged it. Illy asked, voice trembling. Vicent winced. "We didn't think you'd understand. It's just a business, Illy. You catch fish. She's saving the planet." Illy left without a word. He didn't cry, not then. Not even when he walked past the docks the next morning and saw another crew loading up the Mariana like she was just any other boat. Disposable, replaced. That night, he sat alone in his truck, the ocean wind whipping past the windows. He had given them everything, every callus on his hands, every lost night of sleep. He kept the family name afloat, while Ree went to summer schools in Switzerland and fancy science camps in Boston. And now they'd stolen it from him, sold the one thing that was his. He stared at his hands, thick and scarred, and felt the betrayal settle into his bones like cold water. They didn't think he was smart enough to notice. They didn't think he had the strength to fight back. They were wrong. He rented a cheap room above a crab shack 2 towns over. Place smelled like grease and desperation. Days passed with little more than rain on the windows, his laptop open, and a notebook filled with scribbled contacts, boat names, permit numbers, and corporate tax IDs. He didn't even touch the water for 3 months. Instead, he went digital, learning business law, silent acquisitions, and shell companies. He paid for courses online, invested in knowledge, while his sister was getting a PhD in Europe funded by his stolen business. Illy was getting a crash course in capitalism the hard way. Revenge wasn't loud. It was silent, cold, and calculated. He found the name on the contract, Blue Coast Ventures LLC, a private company based in Portland. On paper, they were a startup in marine tech. But Illy followed the trail, and what he found made his blood boil. Blue Coast had acquired 5 coastal fishing businesses in 6 months, all family-owned, all sold for suspiciously low prices. The same broker, the same notary, the same legal firm, the same pattern, sell cheap, rebrand, resell at triple value. Predators in clean suits, and his family had gifted them his legacy. Illy went to war, not with fists. Not with threats, with strategy. He contacted an old friend, Luis Ortega, a marine lawyer who owed Illy big years ago. Illy had saved Luis's father from drowning in a storm. Now Luis worked for a firm that specialized in maritime acquisitions. They met at a diner, no lawyers. No papers, just black coffee and a promise. I don't want to sue, Illy said. Luis nodded. Then what do you want? I want to own them before they even realize it. Using Luis's firm as a front, Illy set up a holding company, Anchorlight Group. It looked like a clean, quiet investment vehicle. On the outside, it was just another firm interested in expanding into fisheries and dock management. But inside, it was a weapon. Over 6 months, Anchorlight quietly began acquiring small but crucial parts of the old Rivera Empire. The ice house down the road that stored the catch. Bought the bait supplier that gave discounts to all Blue Coast boats. Acquired the dockmaster who owned rights to the marina lease. Signed over after a handshake and a better offer. Illy never showed his face. He wore a beard and a baseball cap when he needed to sign in person. Sometimes he sent Luis, sometimes he used proxies. By the end of that year, he controlled 60% of the operational infrastructure Blue Coast depended on. The cherry on top, one of the vessels Blue Coast had acquired and renamed the Reedy, was put up for auction after they defaulted on a payment. Illy bought it back under a false name, renamed her quietly, the Silent Tide. While he was building his empire, reposted photos from Switzerland, smiling in labs, toasting champagne, tagging their mother in scenic hikes. Illy watched them all, not to torture himself, but to remember. He remembered how Ree once told him that sitting on a boat your whole life is just wasting potential. He remembered the night she called crying when her grant was delayed, and he wired her $3 without blinking money he earned hauling freezing nets in storms. He remembered how his mother used to say, someday, we'll all be grateful for what you're doing, Illy. But gratitude never came. Just betrayal. By the time the next summer rolled around, Anchorlight Group made an offer to buy Blue Coast Ventures' coastal division outright. An offer padded with just enough zeros to distract them from asking too many questions. Blue Coast sold. Just like that, Rivera Fisheries was his again. The name had changed, but the bones were the same. And now, Illy owned the bones, the blood, and the breath. He didn't announce it. He didn't call home. He didn't even step foot in the old office. Instead, he hired new crews, veterans, misfits, outcasts, people like him. People who had been cast aside, overlooked, underestimated. He upgraded the boats, reopened old contracts, restored the company name in secret filings. The world thought a savvy investment group had revived a dying fishery. The family had no idea that the son they sold out had bought them out. They told themselves he was fine. Busy, maybe bitter, but he'd get over it. Ree, in particular, was convinced she'd done the right thing. After all, wasn't her work important? Climate policy, sustainable fishing, marine biodiversity. She was doing something that mattered. I didn't betray him, she told herself in the mirror once. We all sacrificed. We just made a decision. But she never told anyone about the forged signature. Or how, before the sale, she convinced their mother and uncle to take action before Illy ruined what little value was left. Now, back from Europe with her PhD in hand and a slim resume of environmental consulting gigs, Ree stood on the edge of a different ocean, one she no longer understood. Because something had changed in Mariner's Hollow, something big, Blue Coast Ventures was gone. The sleek rebrand they promised, the digital fish, tracking software, the luxury seafood deals, the reimagined eco-harvesting plans, all vanished within a year, replaced by a new, quieter entity, Anchorlight Fisheries. At first, Ree ignored it. Some faceless investment firm, probably burning through cash and exploiting labor like the rest. But then came the whispers. They brought back the Rivera boat names. They're hiring local crews again, paying well. They bought out the dock leases. The new boss never shows his face. It didn't make sense. Anchorlight was profitable, efficient, growing. When Ree reached out to offer her expertise as an environmental consultant, citing her PhD and family ties to the business, the response came cold and fast. We appreciate your interest. At this time, we are not seeking external consultation. Your application has been declined. No name, no phone number. Just a digital brush-off. She blinked at the email in disbelief. They turned her down. Meanwhile, back home, the consequences hit harder. Their mother, Lucia, had refinanced the family house to help Ree with tuition, assuming the business windfall would keep things stable. Now, with no share in the new company, her income dried up. The mortgage payments ballooned, the savings dwindled. Vicent, who had used part of the Blue Coast money to invest in a seafood export startup, watched it crash and burn in under a year. Turns out there wasn't much demand for artisan octopus jerky. He was back at the bar by noon most days. Ree applied for jobs in 3 different cities, got ghosted by every single one. Her degree looked great on paper, but she had no field work, no published research, no grants. And her biggest talking point, her family's fishing legacy, was no longer hers to claim. She walked the docks one morning out of nostalgia, staring at the boats unloading their holes. One vessel caught her eye, the Silent Tide, a familiar hull, a familiar name. Something about it tugged at her. "You look like you've seen a ghost," someone said. She turned. An older fisherman stood nearby, tugging a net off a crate. "Sorry," she muttered. "I used to know this boat." He laughed. "Yeah, she used to be the Ree D, before the new owner changed it. Kinda ironic, huh?" Ree froze. "What do you mean, the new owner? Bought her at auction, cleaned her up too. Quiet guy, never shows his face, but he runs a tight ship, pays well, respects the sea." Ree swallowed the lump in her throat. She knew that boat. She named that boat, and now it belonged to someone else. Things spiraled quickly. One by one, everything they had sold off came under new management, and none of it included them. No offers, no buybacks, just polite indifference from faceless lawyers and automated emails. They went from being the family that owned the sea to outsiders. And still, none of them connected the dots, not until the invitation arrived. It came in a plain white envelope, no return address, no stamp, hand-delivered. It was addressed to Lucia Rivera, Vicent Rivera, and Dr. Ree Rivera. Inside was a single note: "You sold my name, now it belongs to me again. Come see what it cost you. E.R." Underneath, a formal invitation to Anchorlight's reopening ceremony at the newly restored Rivera Fisheries processing plant, with the Rivera name chiseled in stone above the main gate. Ree's hands trembled as she read it. "Illy," she whispered. It was Illy. Their mother said nothing. Uncle Vicent just exhaled and reached for a drink. The day of the ceremony, the docks were packed. Local reporters, former employees, city officials, everyone came to see the miracle. A dying fishery resurrected without government aid, foreign investors, or corporate meddling. Anchorlight had brought pride back to Mariner's Hollow, and at the center of it all, standing in a black jacket, clean, shaven for the first time in 2 years, was Illy Rivera. He didn't look angry, he looked calm, stronger, quieter, in control. When Ree approached him after the ribbon cutting, she was ready for anything: a punch, a shout, even tears. But all he said was, "You look like you've been swimming against the tide. I didn't know, she said, voice cracking. I didn't know you were behind all this. That was the point, he replied. She glanced around. So what happens now? Illy tilted his head like he was considering it. Now you get to watch it from the outside like I did. She winced. I'm sorry. I believe you, he said. But I don't forgive you. She was beautiful, sleek, strong, and silent like her namesake. Illy had commissioned her to match the soul of the original, down to the rust-colored trim his father once painted by hand. Only now she was faster, smarter, built for the future. Why are we here? Vicent asked, his voice rough with age and regret. Illy stood at the helm, arms crossed, the sea stretching behind him. Because I needed to say this here, where it all began. He looked at each of them, his mother's tired eyes, Vicent's worn face, Ree's silence wrapped in guilt. You didn't just sell the business, you sold me, my name, my legacy. You made a decision without me, thinking I wouldn't fight back, and you were right at first. Lucia stepped forward, her voice trembling. Mijo, we were desperate. We thought we were doing the right thing for the family. Illy shook his head slowly. You were the family. The business was how I kept us together. I wasn't just fishing. I was feeding us, holding everything up while you sent Ree off to chase her dreams. I didn't complain when she needed money. I didn't complain when Dad died. I didn't complain when no one helped. I kept everything going, and when I needed you the most, he stopped. His voice cracked. Ree tried to speak. I was wrong. He looked at her, really looked. She was thinner, less sure of herself. That polished confidence she once carried like a sword had dulled. She'd come back with degrees, but they couldn't shield her from what she had lost. I know you were, Illy said. I don't hate you, but I won't let you back in. Silence settled like fog on the deck. Vicent scoffed, though without venom. So what now? You punish us forever. Illy reached into his coat and pulled out 3 envelopes. He handed one to each of them. Lucia opened hers first and gasped. Inside was a share certificate, 5% ownership of Rivera Fisheries. Ree looked up, shocked. Illy answered before she could ask. You each get 5%, non-voting, non-controlling, symbolic, enough to keep your names on the books, enough to remind you what you threw away. He turned to his mother. You can stay in the house. I bought it back last month, paid off your mortgage. It's under the business now. Think of it as a retirement gift. Vicent blinked. Why would you do that after everything? Illy didn't smile. Because I'm not like you. Then he turned to Ree. There's a difference between ambition and betrayal. You cross that line. I don't need your apology. I don't even need your guilt. I just need distance. Ree lowered her gaze. You were the better one all along. No, Illy said. I was the forgotten one, and now I'm not. As the sun began to set, painting the sea gold, Illy dismissed them with a nod. They left quietly, carrying their shame in expensive shoes and weathered hearts. Illy stayed. He stood at the edge of the deck, letting the wind wrap around him. He cast one last net into the open water, out of habit more than need. It wasn't about the catch. It was about closure. Later that evening, he walked the docks alone, every step echoing with memory, his father's laugh, the way Ree used to run across the planks barefoot. The first crab pot he pulled in by himself. They'd taken his name, but they couldn't take the sea, and now he had it all back. Not just the business, not just the boats, but his power, his peace.